Well, good afternoon and welcome to Office Hours here on hosting.com's Agency Success. So great to have you with us today. My name is Nathan Ingram. I'm the agency trainer here for Agency Success, and I'm joined by my buddy Cory Miller. Cory, how are you today?
Hey, good. It's pouring in Oklahoma City. I came in from a doctor's appointment and trying to run in and not be wet before this started. But it's good to see everybody today. And of course, you and episode 2 of Office Hours has begun.
Indeed. Indeed. And your title at hosting.com just left my mind, but it's
Chief
Chief Evangelist, right?
Evangelist. Yep.
That's a great title. So
Everybody goes, "What do you do?"
you evangelize.
My brothers thought I was working for a church. I said, "Well, of sorts."
Sort of, yeah, right. That's great. So it's wonderful to see everybody here. If you've just joined us in Zoom, open up the chat and say hello. We will be moving to questions here in a little bit, but we do want to have a discussion about, I think, an interesting news item. Not a specific news item, but certainly a topic that's been in the news, which is FAIR, the Federated and Independent Repositories project that many folks in the WordPress space are working on. Before we get to that, though, let me just drop in our link over in the chat. If you have a question to ask today, please use the link there in the chat and get your question in. Looks like currently we have 7 questions in the list. And just a quick reminder, you can ask your questions at any time during the week. It doesn't have to be just during office hours. All you have to do is go to wpnathan.com. And right up there in the header, you'll see a big green Ask a Question button. And so at any point during the week, if you're working on something and you want to ask a question, just go over there and drop it in, and we take the questions in the order they are received. So let's, one thing we want to try to do on every office hours is talk about something interesting that's happening in WordPress news that particularly impacts those of us that are doing work with clients in WordPress. So the thing that I picked out this week is something that I've not talked very much about, and that is the Federated and Independent Repositories FAIR group that's been created and developed to address some of the concerns that have been lingering around the WordPress space in the last year. There are some notable people involved in this project. Probably at the top of the list, the 2 folks that spearheaded the effort are Kareem Maruki, who is the CEO of Crowd Favorite, an enterprise WordPress agency, and also Joost de Valk. Cory, I know you have a relationship with both of those guys. So as you've seen this thing developing, I'd love to get your take on that. But for those of you who aren't aware, the Federated and Independent Repositories group is building something that will essentially be, and this is an oversimplification, but a replacement for WordPress.org for you to connect your WordPress site to get updates and so forth. Now, if you're not aware, every single time you run updates or anything happens on the back end of your WordPress site, a lot of traffic is going back and forth to WordPress.org, where it's sharing usage statistics and some tracking information about what plugins you have installed and those sorts of things. And through the process of what I, over the last several months, have been calling the recent unpleasantness in WordPress, some folks have gotten concerned about the fact that one individual owns WordPress.org. It is not a WordPress Foundation project. It belongs to a single individual. And so as a result of that, something like 43% of the internet rests on one website owned by an individual. And so that's a problem, just full stop. It's a supply chain problem. And so when things started happening on WordPress.org that made a lot of folks scratch their heads and wonder what's going on, some folks started thinking about that. And a lot of well-known, well-respected, deeply involved people who have over the years invested heavily in WordPress came together to create this project, which has become called the FAIR Package Manager. Now, if you're not familiar with it, you can see it over at fair.pm, and I'm going to share my screen. This is the site. Now, FAIR, FAIR.pm redirects to this GitHub page where the FAIR Package Manager project lives. And so you can read about it. They are part, and they have placed themselves under the auspices of the Linux Foundations. There's a lot of resources involved in that as well. And there's just a lot of interesting people who are involved here. So Cory, I'm curious, as someone who's been around the WordPress space for a very long time, what's your take on this?
One of the first questions and persistent questions up and even now I got after WordCamp US when a lot of things happened was what's going on and what's the future? And agency owners were the ones with those questions for good reason. You built your businesses on WordPress, this amazing open source software. And I beyond the technical, that's the part really well, Nathan. I think having another group with really good leaders, really good intent, and that's my friends Kareem and Yost. They're just good people. They really believe in open source, obviously WordPress, and I'm glad they have stepped up to help just give a little bit more safety and protection for our agencies that, create the internet through building sites for your clients. I mean, WordPress as a whole, I think for a long time hasn't given enough credit to agency owners. I've got to spend 20 years of my career in WordPress because you all, awesome agency owners that are out there building. So at one point, when Nathan and I were together in a past business, we were training, supplying you with tools, plugins, things like that to build those sites. And so, I'm married to an agency owner, by the way. Some of my best friends are agency owners. And so I like this for the sake of one other option that kind of maybe feels a little bit better as you continue to do your work, build your websites for your clients, run your business. And so I like it from that angle all the way. And then when you get Kareem, you get Yoast, you get the other people involved, it just adds to the credibility, the stability of that project, but also WordPress. And I like it for that reason. We need some diversity in that sense for sure. And it's a great move.
Yeah. And there are notable people involved. So in the project, the project is led by a technical steering committee, and there's 3 individuals that are part of that committee that were elected by the folks that have started contributing to the project. Some of these names you may recognize. Carrie Dills is one. She was elected sort of as the voice of the folks who are using WordPress as power users. Another is Mika Epstein, who for many years essentially ran the WordPress plugin directory. She retired a few years ago. And the third is Ryan McHugh, who is a heavily involved developer for like 20 years in WordPress, who was one of the leaders of developing the WordPress REST API and built a lot of the API architecture that calls back and forth between WordPress.org and an individual site. These are folks that are deeply involved in WordPress, and there's so many more. I actually, Cory, I was just talking to Scott Clark earlier today, and he's doing some contributions. Some of you may recognize Scott Clark as the developer of Pods. He's working on some contributions with FAIR as well. There's just lots of folks whose names you may recognize that are involved in this project. So I want to talk just for a minute about how it works. And if you want to try it out, you can certainly do that. There's not a whole lot to see just yet. But what I want to do is install the plugin and let you see actually what will happen. So we're here you can go to fair.pm, and that takes you, again, forwards you to this GitHub page where you can scroll down. Actually, we're going to go to click this link to download the plugin button, and you will find at the bottom of this change log the zip file. So clicking on this zip file will download this plugin file, which you just upload to your dashboard like any other plugin. So let's do that. Now, when we install and activate this plugin, a number of things are happening behind the scenes. Oh, I already had it installed. I'll just replace it. We'll keep going. A number of things are happening behind the scenes, none of which it's likely you're going to notice. There's a lot of silent things that have happened. When this plugin is activated, This WordPress install for WP Nathan is now disconnected from WordPress.org. It does not call out to WordPress.org for updates. Now, can I still get updates? Absolutely. Because what it's done is it has connected me to AspirePress. Now, AspirePress is a project to do a number of things, but it for one of the big things is that it has mirrored and they keep an active mirror of everything on WordPress.org. And you can learn about the folks involved here. It's very open and transparent. This is the first of the mirrors. Now, the idea of FAIR is that there will be lots of these federated and independent repositories, the first of which is AspirePress. Now down here is really the only thing you're going to see once you activate the plugin. It's going to, there's one setting right now. Do you want to use fair avatars or do you want to use gravatars? Because gravatar is another one of those things that makes a callback to WordPress.org and to the gravatar site. So you can choose to use fair avatars or you can use gravatars if you want. Now, ultimately, as I've listened and read about the future plans for FAIR, there'll be additional settings here where you can choose your own repository. So what that could do is maybe you choose one that's closer to you, or maybe at some point your web host will have its own repository. So it'll be super fast because you're staying in your own web host network. There's lots of things that could happen here. But at this point, this is where we are. In this single activate the plugin, it's now disconnected from WordPress.org and connected to AspirePress. So there's no privacy issues. Everything about FAIR is built with a privacy first opt in, not opt out approach. So it's quite good for things like GDPR and so forth. So that's how it works. It's pretty simple at this point. Cory, what do you think this could do for WordPress?
I think it's excellent. I think we need, just like, when we would build plugins and themes back at iThemes, it was, we weren't always the first, of course, right? But I think competition, or at least separate is good. Like I said, for the project, when you started naming the other names, I was just like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. The only one of those you mentioned I don't know as well as Ryan, but the others, I know Mika's work. She's incredible. Everything they've done over there. Carrie obviously has been a leader and influencer in ours, so that's a good thing for it. And then I like there's been talk way back. When I started iThemes, iPhone was just version 1. And then they released the App Store, and that just took the iPhone in so many different places in a good way, where we've got, I don't know how many apps I've got on my phone, but you think about that with plugins. And so I think there's cool stuff you could do there. I don't know what their intent is with AspirePress, but I think competition is good for the customer, where you're going to get innovation, you're going to get new things, and also the diversity side. But when you just keep naming those names down, it's like, and you mentioned Scott Kingsley Clark, it's like that's a home run. That's heart of the community I've known, the people I've known for 18, 20 years now. And that's the thing I always rally for, is our together, being together, doing work together. Just like here, we've got agency owners. You don't look at yourselves as competitors. You're looking at each other as cooperators, collaborators, coaches for each other, cheerleaders. That is a good thing. That is the heart of WordPress to me. So I like it. I want to look more at AspirePress. Admittedly, I've kind of kept my head down and haven't wanted to dig in. But again, Yoast was a business partner of mine for a while, and I got to say, from the beginning to the end of that partnership, they just showed up with heart, passion for open source WordPress, business owners, people using WordPress. I mean, so it just bodes well for everything, and I think it's good. I think this is what needs to happen.
Yeah. I agree. It's going to be interesting to see how it develops for sure. There are a number of good pieces of discussion there in the chat that, in order to get to questions, I think we'll let those go on
Well,
by. But
I'll answer Sue. She
yeah,
said, does Cory think they'll ever block FAIR's access? I don't know. Obviously don't have a crystal ball, but I'd say I don't think so, at least in the short term, because I've seen some different openness and changes. And this, I tell agency owners, apart from the FAIR project, this is just a statement I would say is that you agency owners are the customer. Okay. So when I was at Post Status and we sold sponsorships to hosting companies and product companies, who do they all want to talk to? You. Why are we doing this? Because a hosting company called hosting.com wants to talk to you, wants to be your trusted partner. You are the customer. And I told Kyle, Nathan, every agency owner I talk to, Kyle at the admin bar, of course, I say, listen, you have a voice. You should share your voice. Now, one offs, good. But when you collectively come together, people in our industry or community have to take notice. Name one hosting company you know of that doesn't have an agency program. Name one theme or plugin provider that isn't wanting to talk to you, market to you. You can see from their pricing plans, they market to you. You're the customer. So if you don't like something or you do like something, you vote for it with your wallet, but also your voice. So that's my soapbox is you're the customer. You need to tell the rest of us what you want. So do it. Do it.
Yeah. That's a great advice. Great place to end this discussion. Thanks for that input, Cory. I think you're absolutely right. And I just encourage everybody to read more. I dropped, if you scroll back up in the chat, I dropped several excellent articles on the different aspects of FAIR that came from the repository. Which, by the way, if you're not subscribed to the repository newsletter, you really should be. It's probably the best one out there right now. The website is therepository.email. And yeah, you'll find probably the best journalistic coverage of WordPress there right now.
And
And
then
several,
if you love it like you Nathan and I do, because Ray is fantastic. She's a
yep.
journalist by trade. She's done this for now. She told me last year she's full time, or actually a couple of months ago. Now here's where you can make your voice matter. If you love Ray's work, she is funded by sponsors. So your favorite theme plugin hosting companies, you need to ping them and say sponsor because I love it and read it religiously. And any other product you do the same. Get the word out.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's move on to some questions. It looks like we currently have 8 questions in the list. We should still have time for more. So if you have a question you'd like to ask, please use that link in the chat. All right. First question out of the gate. Let me share my screen again. First question out of the gate is going to be from Paul. All right, Paul. Simple question. However, I'm looking for a confirmation / deeper understanding. If a plugin is installed on a site and I upload the same plugin manually, I get the message this plugin exists and shows differences in versions, just like we saw a second ago with AspirePress. So if I upload the plugin, what happens? Do the plugin files and folders get replaced like a clean install as if the folder was deleted and only the new package exists? Or is the new package copied to the server and do additional files that may have existed still exist? Okay, it's a great question. So it's going to act like it was updated, right? So as I understand it, that means the directory is wiped, the new file is expanded in place. So it works just like you updated the plugin, but with the same version. So that's the way I understand how that works. So Paul, is that the question? Does that get the answer that you're looking for? So just earlier, when we replaced that FAIR plugin, it wiped out, cleaned up, reinstalled. Yeah. Good. All right. Next up here is Ben. All right, Ben. When discussing your, this is a good one. When discussing your company / business opinion, reply to the client, do you use the pronoun we to represent a larger organization, or do you use I as the pronoun so it's always representing yourself? Okay, let's pause right here and take a poll in the chat. Now, let's just assume that you're a solo, okay, and you don't have a team. If you're a team, you're probably going to say we. But if you're a solo, do you say we or I? Let's hear from you in the chat. Ooh, looks like the eyes have it. Depends on the client. Interesting. Yes, there is a Slack thread about this. And if you have not joined our Slack group for agency success, I'm going to drop that link in the chat for you again there. So let me finish the question. Personally, it's about the client perception and decided on we many years ago. It was taken aback this week following pushback from a client. Interesting, Ben. At the end of the day, none of us do anything on our own in this business. So there are many elements with multiple vendors. Yes. Okay. So when I was working alone, I always just said because to me, we just didn't feel honest. And that's a personal decision. Like you have to decide for yourself. Because I wasn't a we. Unless if I had some contractors that were working on a particular project, maybe there would be a we. But if it in those years early in my business when it was only me, I said I. That's where I landed on it. I'm not necessarily sure there's a right or wrong answer to this question. Yeah, I find it interesting that you had client pushback on that, Ben. Are you here? Yes, Ben. No, Ben Bradley is not here. Oh, he just joined. Literally, just this moment popped into the chat or the participants list. So Ben, we're on your question, and I would love. I'm just curious about how the client pushed back. So that's where I land on it. Interesting conversation about that in the chat. Beth says she was taught in entrepreneur school, whatever that means, to use we because you fill multiple roles.
I think that's a good
Okay.
point that you do fill multiple rows. But, back to what you just said is what feels most authentic and natural and honest to you. However, I like to say we. Obviously at hosting.com, we've got 900 plus people. So it's never an I. Even today, it's me and you. However, there's Katie Richards on our team. There's a lot of people that's helped be a part of this. So it's always we to me. And when I ran iThemes, it was always we. Of course, we did have a multiple team, but what I found was I would get more credit than I really should have because there's other people doing all those things. So I'd quickly say it's we, of course. And then this person is the one that's doing that or trying to give credit where credit due. But I can see the professionalism side. Somebody just mentioned that of how you present yourself to the client. And I think someone mentioned in here, you're never really truly alone, even with, well, hosting companies, right? WordPress, different things. You rely on a bigger set of people. So I don't think that's disingenuous. I've done some one-on-one, I've done some freelance solopreneur type work. And I was trying to think through that for a second. Do I say I? But I still rely on a lot of different people tools and things for that. I think there's some shelter in we too. So if they're, upset about a project, doesn't feel like a you know, personal thing to you. It's we as a whole. And I know I'm just one person, but the business as a whole does a lot of things for others. And so I think for me, I'm good with saying we.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? It's okay to have a diverging opinion on this. I think ultimately it comes down to what feels the best to you
Yep.
as an individual. There's some great comments in the chat, and I particularly like the ones that say, "Well, I have an AI, so Chat GPT and Claude, so now I am a we." And Sue Spencer said all of her personalities say we should use we, so that's good. Okay, interesting. Um, yeah, Beth is right. There's no right or wrong here. It just comes down to what is most comfortable for you. Yeah, good stuff. Great discussion. Thank you for that question, Ben. All right, next up in the list is Beth Livingston. All right. Beth says, I'm pretty certain I asked this before, but asking again to ensure my old lady brain remembers the answer. Okay. The original homepage URL is mysite.com/home. If I make a copy of the homepage and call it mysite.com/home2, and then rework the page and set home2 as the homepage in WordPress, it changes the permalink to mysite.com. Will that affect SEO in any way? Should I copy and paste the new page elements to the additional homepage instead? Okay, great question. So, in what the thought behind your question is correct. There's a technical piece here that's not technically correct. Like WordPress doesn't technically change the permalink to mysite.com. That's the URL where it lives. But here's the case where URL and permalink are not the same thing. So the permalink would still be home too, but you'd go to mysite.com and it loads that page. So you're thinking about it the right way. That's just a little technical thing that doesn't really matter. So no, you do not have to go copy all the stuff to /home. You can leave it on home too if you want to. Was it going to affect the SEO in any way? No, because SEO is the outside looking in, right? So it's only going to see what's at your domain, which is now loading this new page called home too. So that's Beth. Beth, does that answer your questions? Yeah. Now, just because of my own, I don't think like at the end of the day, I probably would not leave the permalink as home too. I would probably end up deleting the old homepage and renaming this and putting it all there. That's just, I would rather not have two in the permalink like that. There's no other reason than that's just a personal preference. There's no technical reason for that. That's just an insane brain answer. But yeah, you are correct. All right. Next up in the list is Sherry. Hey, Sherry. All right. I'm curious, has your tech stack changed since the last 2024 starter site workshop? Now, pausing for a moment. If you've just started joining us on office hours here on hosting.com, this question is referring to a course that I taught when I was working with a different company. So this was a course that was in November and December of last year. And so the question is, are you still using solid WP tools for security, backups, cadence, etc.? I haven't switched to the new next-gen solid backups and still using legacy. However, I know some people have been having trouble with it and looking for alternatives for backups. I'm also looking at creating a fresh starter site, so wondering what other new tools are better than what was listed before. New site should be running 8.2 minimum. Yep. Is PHP 8.3 better and stable? PHP 8.3 is better than PHP 8.2, but it is not fully supported by WordPress yet. So I'll start at the end here. I would not run your new sites on 8.3 because you might have weird PHP errors popping up if certain plugins are not yet compatible with 8.3. And WordPress core doesn't even officially support it yet. So that's the easy part of the question. The other part of the question, okay, let's focus here starting with backups, okay? Am I still using solid backups? Yeah. And for those of you that know me and have been around trainings with me for a while, you know I don't change my tech stack unless there's a good business reason for it. For me, the advantage of having a product that is like, I don't change the tech stack just because another product might be coming along that has a slightly better feature. For me, what's more important is having consistency and repeatable processes because we manage a lot of sites. And to change that piece would be a lot of work. And I just don't make those changes very often. And Chris from my team is here in the chat, and he will tell you for a fact that Chris is always like, I joke that Chris is the gas and I'm the brakes. He's like, yes, let's try it. I'm like, let's don't try it, right? Let's let's be very careful and make deliberate decisions. So what are we doing with backups? Now, here's what I'll tell you. In the big picture, it is better to have your backups not a backup plugin in WordPress. There are so many things that can go wrong, and depending on your hosting environment and 800 other things, with a WordPress-based backup plugin. This is why, for those of you that have been were around Solid for a long time, it's why they stopped, they've kind of sunsetted Solid Backup's legacy, the old backup buddy, and they've moved to a SaaS approach, next-gen backups. There's a lot of other ones out there like it. And the neat thing about what hosting.com offers is that built into the cPanel on hosting.com servers is Jet Backup, which is a server-level backup that you can run automatically. It's doesn't even have to come in from the outside. It's running at the server level. And here's the kicker. It can push those backups offsite to the cloud storage of your choice from everything of Google Drive, Dropbox. I think it even supports pCloud for those of you that have those big lifetime deals. So take a look at that, because we haven't made that change yet, but that's where I'm looking, because it makes sense to have that backup running on the server outside of WordPress so that nothing can get in the way. As far as yes, I'm still using Cadence. Yes, I'm still using Solid Security. I believe Solid Security is the best security plugin for WordPress, period, because it um, impacts security the way a WordPress plugin should, which is only at the application level. It doesn't get in the way, like it doesn't try to do things that other layers of your security ought to be handling, like network level, server level, application WordPress level. It just does application security very well. It's a really long answer. Oh, there was a PS. By the way, Sherry, did I answer all that good enough for you? And finally, when can you do a fresh starter site workshop? I don't know. We hadn't figured out how any of that's going to work in this new framework of agency success. I'd love to, and we'll see about that. Even if I just do that on my own, I'll let you know. Okay, great questions. Next up is Beth Livingston. Beth has started using Blisk on my recommendation. It has been made my life much easier. It really is. It's great. Recently, it's been crashing a lot. Have you noticed this? No. Are you still using it? Yeah. Do you have another solution you're using? No, I still use Blisk, like it's down there in my Mac dock. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Blisk, it is essentially a Chromium browser that allows you to view your site with skins of different devices. It's super cool to preview and see how your site is going to look on tablets and phones. And the nice thing about it is, because it's Chrome or Chromium, you can use the inspector right there with the device size. So it's pretty cool. I like it a lot. Melanie's mentioning Sizzy. I think we have Sizzy. Chris, I think Chris uses Sizzy a lot in our work. I still stick with Blisk. Blisk is not a Chrome extension. It is a separate app, and it does require purchase. Next up in the list is Tanya. And if you have a question to ask, there should still be space today. Please use that link that is waiting for you in the chat. Tanya, I'm sure this isn't in your wheelhouse. Oh, good. But maybe you know someone else, or someone else does. All right, so we're tapping into the hive mind. So feel free, anybody that knows this answer, drop it there in the chat. When I create a logo for a client, I spend a lot of time organizing the layers at the end, and I am starting to wonder if this is necessary or just me being my normal weird self. Fair enough. Simple logos are easy enough, but a complex logo can take hours to organize the layers because I sort them by color and element depending on the logo. That sounds like a lot, Tanya. I am not sure if it's beneficial for the client, i.e., using specific elements in the logo or printing embroidery, or if it's just my OCD wasting time. Okay, Tanya, are you here? Do I see you in the list? Yes, there you are. Okay, so here's my question. To answer your question, no, I don't do this. But I also don't do super detailed logo work. I do a fair amount of graphic work. But how many times has it actually benefited you to have these layers organized and sorted like you're doing? Once. Yes, that's what I thought. Once. So I would say stop doing that, Tanya. It's just these are the sorts of things, like at the end of your project, like if you're building a website for a client, at the end of the project, you could spend like any of us on any project could spend a whole, another 20 hours of work tweaking the teeny tiny little things, right? To get it from 98% to 100%. And guess what? Nobody's ever going to know that you did any of that work. They're just not. And so you spend an extra 20 hours to get 2% better that really doesn't move the yardsticks. So Tanya, what I would tell you to do, just from your buddy Nathan, is stop doing that. Like that's time that you could be doing other things. And then if it comes about that one logo does need that sort of sorting for embroidery or whatever, then do it. And guess what? You get to charge the client for the time it takes you to do that because that's not something that a typical logo designer is going to do out of the gate in just a typical logo. Um, so Tanya, so the good thing about this is that what you're describing, it indicates that you are an extremely detailed person who cares about the details and you care for your clients, and that's why you're doing this, right? And that's a really good thing. But probably you can continue to care about your clients and release all of this time that you're spending on something that's really they're never going to notice it. So that's my advice. Anybody else want to weigh in here? Does anybody else organize their layers like this? Such a great question. And the thing is, the a lot of times these questions aren't about the thing; they're about the thing behind the thing, right? And so the thing behind the thing here is a tendency that we have sometimes to over deliver in ways that don't really move the yardsticks for the client. Um, yeah. And so whether you're designing a website or whatever, Cory, you want to jump in on this?
I was just gonna say, it sounds like Tatiana is like really pushed in on logo design and branding and that is great. Like as a client, if I'm buying a logo from you, I want to know your process enough where I go, yeah, this person is going to take care of it, do it thoughtfully, thoroughly. But from the productivity side, I think it depends on what you're charging and just making sure you're charging what you're worth for those layered things. Like I've worked with logo design for a while, and gosh, it's always like I just got to get okay. I got this version black and white. Well, I just got these hats in, for instance, today, and trying to find that right version for it was key. So, I think where you want to go in your work is one question. Do you want to push in more in that and show that you do a more complex process? Uh, and then, weigh that with what your time and needs are for sure. And, echo Nathan's advice.
Yeah. And maybe there's a medium in here of some way of organizing the layers, Tanya, so that um it like it might there's a certain amount of organization that's probably helpful as you're working on the project that could actually over the time of the project make it take less time because it's a little more organized, but then there's the over organization that's not going to be helpful. So maybe there's a happy medium in there somewhere where maybe half of what you're doing would be helpful, but going past that wouldn't. It's really good. Thank you for this question, Tanya. I think we've all seen that show up in one way or another in our
Oh,
business.
yeah. Oh, yeah. It might not
Yeah,
be logo design, but it's somewhere else.
it's
We all have
something.
this.
Yeah. I mean, I literally, I can spend, we released a big project on Monday and I could have easily spent another 20 hours just tweaking things that nobody but me would have noticed. And it's just not worth it. All right. Next question is Bonnie. Hey, Bonnie. I'm helping a friend stand up a simple web page for our neighborhood 5K. She went with a local hosting company and they offer SiteJet Builder. Yeah. Are you familiar? I am. It is the cPanel based website builder. Should I encourage her to download WordPress? Okay, this is a really good question, and it's another one of these things that could tap into uh, similar. Like there's a whole trail of discussions that could come along after this. So, for this specific situation, are you when you say you're helping a friend stand up the web page, are you going to be the one building the website in SiteJet Builder? Or are they going to? Oh, she's going to do it. Okay. So your role will be fixing something or like you're the you're the second level tech support just in case she can't figure it out. Is that right? Or what's your role in this? Okay. So that's probably okay. SiteJet Builder is fine. It does a fine job. It is okay. It'll do the job for this. Now, and you will probably be able, like, if there's I can't get the button to center, little tweaky things like that, you can probably pretty easily get in there and figure it out. Now, if the problem, this is the problem that I would encourage you to try to avoid. Um, First of all, should you encourage her to download WordPress? Not necessarily, because I mean, WordPress is no longer the easiest to use site builder. It's just not. Unless you've got, something else, like I'm using WordPress and, this theme that provides me a starter theme that I can just, starter templates or whatever that can set it all up and I just go in and tweak it. It's starting at ground zero with WordPress is not easy for a beginner. It's just not anymore. It used to be. It's not. So SiteJet, they've got templates. You can just spin it up and there it goes. Now, the problem comes with, like, Bonnie, you've been working with WordPress for a long time. You've got ways you do things. You've probably got your builder tool of choice. You've got your forms plugin that just works. And, you've got all these things that you've built over the years where you can just boom, 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 knock it out. But as soon as you change your tech stack, this goes back to the previous thing about why don't I change my tech stack? Well, because, like, the penalty of time for moving to a different process, a different tool, like, it's going to affect your productivity. And in this case, it could really be complicated. Like, you could spend easy a half a day trying to, well, why won't this form send right or whatever? And it's not in WordPress. It's not in your regular tool stack. It's a whole different set of things. And it's outside your normal work pattern. And so, like, you could real quick lose a lot of time on this. So that's where I would try to weigh this out. Maybe put boundaries around your involvement for the project, and make sure that your friend who's building this has, like, legit tech support if you can't answer the quick question. So does that make sense, Bonnie? I will never forget, many years ago. This was one of the first couple of years that I was offering coaching services to agency owners, and I was coaching this individual who I had been building with WordPress a long time, and just like me, had been in other frameworks before WordPress, Dreamweaver and those sorts of things. A lot of you went through that phase as well. And this developer had a client who, for whatever reason, didn't want the site in WordPress. And she was like, well, how hard could it be to go back to Dreamweaver and build a site after several years of not having used it? And the answer to that question of how hard could it be was very hard. And she ended up spending like 2 or 3 times as long to build this site in flat HTML as she would have using her built systems and processes in WordPress. So yeah, you can really find yourself in some quicksand if you're not using your regular tool set. Yeah. It's a great question. Thank you, Bonnie. Okie dokie. We are down to the final 2 questions. So if you've got a question you want to ask, just drop it there in the chat. Probably have time for 1 or 2 more, I'm going to guess. Next up here is Doris. Hey, Doris. Uh-oh. How do I get the replays of the live streams? Okay. Such as Tuesday's AI webinar. I was registered and able to watch some of it, but did not get a link to the replay. So, Cory, where are we on that?
I'll get it to you right now.
Now, we do have, so for those of you who are coming from my previous, followed me over here from my previous gig, we used to publish those replays almost immediately because we didn't do any post-processing. We have a very skilled video editor who's doing post-processing on this. And so it takes a little bit of extra time. So it's not going to be the same day usually. How long does it usually take them to do their work, Cory?
Oh, I mean, see, it was Tuesday. I just put the link to the AI webinar. That was Tuesday. It was up this morning. So 2 days.
Yeah, a couple of days, day or 2. So it's not going to be immediate like it was if you're used to having it up same day. That won't be the case at this point. But yeah, there is the link, and yeah, make sure you're on. Like, I shared the link to the YouTube channel earlier, but if you just go to YouTube, I'm always scared to go to YouTube and see what shows up. And just search for hosting.com, and you will find there on the channel under videos. Look at there. There they are. It's all right here. So you can find it right there. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and you'll get those updates. All right. And that means also, by the way, if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, YouTube will let you know that there are videos and you won't have to wait for an email from hosting.com. And let me just mention also, some of you, I know there was some discussion earlier in the Slack group about office hours mentioned were on Tuesdays. That was a typo. We corrected that in the Slack channel, but it is office hours every Thursday, just like we've announced in the past.
That's what happens when Cory goes too fast and Cory sends a newsletter. So sorry, everybody. It's Thursdays, obviously.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah, so every Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, 11 a.m. Pacific. Yeah, and translate that for whatever time zone you're in. It's at this time, so you're here. That's good. All right, next question is from Beth Livingston, and this is the final question that I have in the list. Boy. Now that you're not obligated to support certain products, would you consider doing a webinar on WP Grid Builder? I'm in love with it, but would love some more understanding. I'm not sure, Beth. That's a question that we probably need to talk about internally here on, do we want to do training on particular products or bigger picture? I don't know. We'll talk about it. I know Grid Builder has a lot of tutorials out there, just already. So you may want to just look on YouTube for Grid Builder tutorials. And yep, you will find several there.
Hey, by the way, there's been two questions about content, and that's what we want. As we said initially, we're building this together with you, for you. So when you said about Nathan's previous workshop, any topics you want covered, things like that, let us know. I think we'll probably get something together where we can email that out and share back to a forum. We're still working on some of the internal like structures and stuff, like a website. But we just started talking about that this week, and to have like a central place to go to. But in the meantime, tell us what you want to hear. I would love, with Nathan's expertise, my expertise and experiences, to help you all be successful. What does that mean to you? That's you define that, but let us know what that means. Nathan's so good he can do impromptu things, he knows so much, but like vote and tell us what you want again so that we can program these in. AI had 450 registrations to it. So that's a hot topic we're going to keep coming back to, but I've been on a bunch of Nathan's webinars. They're all incredible. I even suggested some back to him this week, but yeah, let us know. And Beth and others, you're sharing that. So that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we've mentioned this a few times, but we're just getting this thing spun up, right? This is the second office hours, second week of really getting this going. And so everything's on the table right now, and we're going to figure it out as we go.
That's where you come in. Let us know when you're in
Yes.
Slack and stuff. Maybe we'll post a Slack question or email or something, but I'm trying to capture some of these ones. Like, for instance, Melanie said, selling your agency. Absolutely. We know people that we can bring in. I bought and sold companies, but we can bring people in with agency experience selling, give you thoughts on that. Bunch of stuff here. So good stuff. Keep it coming.
Sue says Cloudflare might have to be monthly. Heck, as often as they change things, it might be weekly. Yeah, indeed. Let's see. No more questions in the. Oh, yes. One question just popped in from Beth.
I have one for you too, Nathan.
Great. Let me do this one from Beth in. All right, Beth, I'm concerned with AI data storage, specifically regarding copyright, HIPAA, or privacy in general. Thoughts? Yes, that's a great question, Beth. And so when you say AI data storage, I'm assuming what you mean is the AI has scraped the information from a site, and therefore it's stored in the AI database forever and ever. But specifically in regard to copyright, yeah, you and everybody else is concerned about that. We actually talked about it a bit last week as the opening news discussion on office hours, just regarding the new settings that Cloudflare has about blocking AI scrapers, and how in many cases that's not a good idea to do. But you're right. It's something to be concerned about, especially if you're publishing your content in order to make money from the content itself, not that you're publishing content to bring people in so you can get paid for something else. Um, there are copyright legal battles happening right now in the courts around the world about AI having scraped content, and they have, and it's been demonstrated. So it's complicated. HIPAA. So, in regard to HIPAA, that's protecting specific patient personally identifiable information. That stuff shouldn't be on your website anyway. So, you definitely want to. I mean, I'm not sure what that would be other than a testimonial. And if someone gives a if somebody gives a test, this is a whole other conversation. But if you have a medical office that you're doing things for, there's a lot of things you should be concerned about. But one of them is if you're displaying testimonials on the site where the customer is mentioning treatment that they had, part of them giving that testimonial has to be a waiver of their HIPAA rights for you to disclose that. Even though they gave it to you, it needs to be specifically disclaimed. And so that's where you need to get additional help on that. Yeah, so it's a big deal, and it's a concern for a lot of us about how AI is affecting everything. So, Beth, I just talked about a lot of things. I'm not sure if I fully answered your question. If there's some texture to that that I haven't touched, please drop it there in the chat. You said when or when you upload to gain insight. I'm not quite sure what that means. But yeah, if there's more texture to this question, here we go. On the upload end or in a meeting with a client if AI is being used? Oh, that's a good question. So I use an AI meeting bot like a lot of us do, just a note taker bot that sits in the background. I've gotten almost it's scary how dependent I've gotten on that. And I always mention to a client whenever I start, do you mind if I have my AI bot recording this call? It's there and it's recording at that point, but I always get their consent simply because I think that's just good to do. And if they say, oh, I don't know, and what my follow up is always, if I have this recording, it lets me be a lot more present in the conversation rather than having to kind of juggle between listening and taking notes. And so it'll be a more fruitful conversation if we can just talk rather than me having to focus on taking notes as well and just let the AI do that. So I always ask I point it out to the client and ask for their consent.
I think that's a good practice always is ask for consent. So a lot of our colleagues are in Europe and there's even tighter than the US restrictions on privacy and things like this. And even when we do it internally, someone always goes, everybody okay with that? But I think that's a good practice. And then what you're talking about, a recording, I don't know what you use. We've used Fathom, and I'll tell you, it is fantastic. You can ask AI questions of it later, get a transcript, get a summary, pull that transcript, everything into something else. And I know you've been working on some stuff related to that. Same thing. I try to take notes, like I'm taking notes here, and I go, I can maybe be more present, like you said, if I have that. Plus, there's always something in there. I've had a client for a long time, and I would transcribe, put them into a specific project and chat, and over time, I thought, okay, that could be beneficial. I'm not sure just yet if it is, but some of those meetings, like, okay, what things didn't I do? And Fathom at least will take those action items out for you, and it's really good because sometimes I'll just miss things.
Yeah. Yeah, Cheryl's asking what note taker I use. I use MeetGeek. It was an AppSumo deal. It works very well. They have really developed it and continue to develop it. Whatever you use, the features that have helped me, and they're part of lots of different Meet bots. I want it to give me a transcript. I wanted to be able to click in the transcript and it jumps to that part of the video. I don't find the automatic like summaries super helpful. I really more find it like, did we talk about a launch date in this conversation? As I could go back and query the transcript. That's really helpful. And this is for me the most important part now. I want to make sure that that tool can connect out to something like Zapier because the thing Cory just mentioned, I was talking to him about this the other day. Um, I'm working on a tool right now where when we get a meeting call, like a discovery call for a client project that comes in, that Zapier will pick up that transcript, drop it into Chat GPT with a saved instruction, and generate the proposal based on my proposal structure and the scope of work that was discussed in the conversation. I'm sort of doing that manually now, and it's gotten pretty good, but I think I can automate all of that. So having that connection is super important. Yeah. All right. Great question. Did we hit all the details for that, Beth? That was a really good, but we kind of went broad. All right. Earlier, Shanta asked if she could mention WordCamp Canada. So you certainly can, Shanta, or I'll mention it for you. WordCamp A, which they blatantly ripped off of our WordCamp name in Birmingham, which we called WordCamp WP Y'all. This is WordCamp A in Canada. Am I saying A well enough? Does it sound Canadian enough, Shanta? I don't know. WordCamp A. I had a delightful time there last year. Cory and I both were there at WordCamp Canada. So that is coming up October 16th and 17th at Carleton University's Richcraft Hall in Ottawa. Ottawa. I had never been to Ottawa before. It's a beautiful city. And if you're anywhere near there or you can get there, I would certainly encourage you to attend.
Do it. Shanta has really been a heartbeat of all this, and I know she's taken a step back on this and letting others lead WordCamp Canada. But we got to support these national WordCamps in Canada. So last year we were there, we got to sponsor, and I think we'll be there this year for sure. She was actually asking me, but I want to because we want to show support for WordCamp Canada. Great people I've known for a long time. Got to meet some new friends. Great memories. And Ottawa is pretty dang cool.
It is. It really is. I was able to take a day and go see Canadian Parliament buildings and some other things, and yeah,
I think I was
a
following you
wonderful.
around, Nathan. Remember?
Yeah, yeah, indeed, indeed. Well, all right, everybody. I believe that comes. Oh, you said you had a question, Cory. They're asking about.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna make sure I ask a question every time too. But you all have great questions, and you come first. But Nathan, you mentioned back a little bit ago. You said, when I first started coaching, when I first started groups, and when you've been doing this for a long time. If you just reflect back, what do you think is the number one thing that gets in the way of agency owners in being successful?
Oh, wow. Okay. So I didn't have words for this until recently. I actually just finished a certification program on a method of therapy, but uh, what gets in our way is ourselves. Like the inside of every like what I've learned in myself and in just hundreds of coaching conversations over the years is that there are technical issues. There are, what plugin makes sense to use here. And that all makes sense. But when we hit a problem with a client or a problem with productivity or something like that, it's and we look out and we watch somebody's YouTube video and they're making it look so easy, but there's something in us that makes that really, really hard for us, whether it's, being as productive as we think we ought to be, or whether it's, being able to release, whether, how trying to control how a client feels about us. There's an internal obstacle there, and it's us getting in the way of ourselves. It's a mindset shift. And what I've learned is what we tend to do is we shame ourselves about that. Like, I ought to be doing like they're doing. I ought to, I should, whatever. Instead of really looking deeper and seeing what is it in me that's standing in the way of me being able to get what I want. And there's usually an answer to that question, but we can rarely find it ourselves. Yeah, we have to have a conversation with somebody that is able to listen and hear and offer some insight.
Okay, I'm going to take his answer and I love it and fully agree. It's the same for me. My coach says the same thing. Okay, I'm talking about somebody else, something else. And she goes, they're not here. What about you? So I'm going to take what Nathan just said and give you all homework. Next week, office hours. Do some journaling, some reflection. How am I getting in my own way? Or what are some of those things? I want you to come back and share some of those and let's talk about them because again, this is all about success. Now, you define that your way, but whatever is in the way inside of you is what Nathan's mentioning here. I want you to come back next week because
It,
what I really want is forward movement with you all. I want to see you thrive. You're here. Now, if you're happy, cool. But I want to see you get to the next level that you're trying to go, and that means forward movement. So, and every now and then, Nathan and I are going to just nudge you because we need to. Because in the past, when we've done some of these, it's like, man, people are staying at the same level year after year, I'm like, I don't want that for them, for you. So do some journaling, do some thinking, share some thoughts in Slack, and let's bring this back and put it in a question or something for next Thursday at 1 p.m. Central Time. I got it right this time. And that's the work I want to keep doing. Now, you're going to get help with all the other things too, but I want to keep us pushing forward for your own success and closer toward that. So,
yeah.
thanks
So
for that,
what was the
Nathan.
question they should journal about?
What is the one thing in your way?
Yeah.
Now, there's a pretext question for that. Is what is success for you? Whatever you define as that, I use the word success because it's pretty broad. Doesn't necessarily mean money. It could mean money, whatever it is to you. And then, okay, so maybe it's a two-part question, Nathan. First is what is success to you? I want to ask that. I want to hear your answers. Okay. And it could be now, it could be 5 years from now, it could be tomorrow, whatever it is. Number two is what's the biggest thing in your way? Let's work on that. Let's
Very
work on
good.
that.
All right. And don't take Paul's advice in the chat and use ChatGPT to answer that question. That defeats the purpose. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us for the last hour. We will see you back next week on Thursday for office hours here with Agency Success on hosting.com, where we go further together.